Hey, welcome back to another edition of the Hood Scout Podcast. Thank you guys for joining me for another edition. Today, man, we're switching it up again. I know when I started this podcast, I said I didn't want to just talk sports. I didn't want to just talk coaches. We're going to have intellectuals. We're going to have business owners. We're going to have the whole the whole gauntlet of people who are I would deem successful in their careers, whether from A to Z. And I think today I got a great guest, so I appreciate Tom. And like I always do, without further ado, tell the people who you are and where you're from.
How you doing, y'all? My name is Dr. Andre Jordan. I'm born and raised here in Houston, Texas, and I am a cosmetic dentist. By trade. Officially a general dentist, but I do a whole lot in that arena, man.
Doc, I was telling you, and we had some little technical stuff we had to fix, but I was kind of giving you a rundown of who I am and all this because I
Mhm.
don't know, man. Maybe dentists don't like to talk a lot, man. I emailed about true story. Emailed about 20 to probably 25 different dentists all over the country.
Mhm.
You and probably five, no, you and probably three or four more said you even replied. I think I
Mhm.
had two to three that said no, thank you. So I just want to give you your flowers to say thank you for taking this chance because you didn't know me from Adam. But whatever it was, you said, hey, I'll do it. I
Mhm.
appreciate that. And I want to say this too, and this is why it's so important. In our community, I was telling you this beforehand. We look
Right.
up to the ball players, we look up to the sports guys, we look up
Mhm.
to different people like that, but we don't hear a lot about doctors. We don't hear a lot about dentists in our community.
Mhm.
I can go so many directions, so I got to slow myself down. Talk to me about how you grew up and what was your interest into dentistry, and we'll go that route first.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. Cool, man. Well, first of all, I'm 42 years old, so I'm an 80s baby, right? Um, Growing up here in Houston, like my mom's a retired educator now. My dad's an architect. My dad was actually one of the uh, integrate. He was in the integrating class of the University of Texas. You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
And he was the third black architect to come out of UT. And he was one of the architects that did the George R. Brown Convention Center here in Houston. He did the Texas Southern's arena, H&P Arena. He
Wow.
did the home that I grew up in. So I grew up on South McGregor, and if you are familiar with Houston, it's kind of like Black River Oaks or the bougie Third Ward, right? It's the entry into Third Ward. Now, both my parents grew up, from meager beginnings on the north side from Fifth Ward, Cashmere Gardens, and Hardy Street, right? Um, I went to private elementary school, St. James, with other, I guess, somewhat well-known Houstonian by the name of Beyonce. She
Oh
actually lived
wow.
behind me, so I know
Oh
Beyonce.
wow.
Grew up with Latoya. She was in school with me too. Um, and during like when I was growing up, my interests were always airplanes and cars. That was my interest. And my folks were kind of like, you know, they always believed that. Well, since I grew up kind of as an only child, I do have a half
Mhm.
brother that's older.
Mhm.
Me and him are cool, but we didn't grow up together, So I kind of grew up as an only child. So
Mhm.
I was always involved in like adult type situations and conversations, So I always kind of felt like an adult child in the mind, right?
Mhm.
Um, I grew up knowing, watching Die Hard and Jaws and all that stuff I
Yeah.
really shouldn't have been watching, but I'm rolling with my folks. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I
Yep.
kind of got indoctrinated early on. One of the things that my parents were always big on, because growing up, they were successful. They were black business people, black educated people. You know, um, my dad being an architect, his business went along with the business cycle. So I've seen him in good times and I've seen
Mhm.
him in bad times. So in the
Yep.
good times, grew up, they had Porsches and Jaguars and all that kind of stuff. So that fostered my interest in cars. I would go with them to travel and all that kind of stuff. So I traveled at a young age. My frequent flyer membership card says 1994 on it. Member since
Wow.
1994. And so all those interests I still have to this day. One of the things, the reason why that's relevant, um, my folks knew in order to try to keep me or put me on a path of a good career and at least a well-rounded adulthood. It's like they were like, yo, if you want this nice type stuff, you got to work for it. So you need to start looking at careers that will afford you that kind of lifestyle that we're showing you and exposing you to, right? So that's kind of what put the seed in my mind. So it's like, okay, well, law and medicine, becoming a doctor or lawyer, that's what you get told, right? You had Cosby Show on, you had all that, and that's kind of what it was.
Hmm.
My dad never really pushed me to go into architecture. They kind of allowed me to form my own decisions about that, right? And my dad's thing was like, a business like that, it's heavily dependent upon the business cycle. Business
Hmm.
cycle is going to go up and down no matter who's in office or whatever's going on.
Hmm.
That's going to happen inevitably, right?
Yeah.
So if you want something that's more fortified, you want to choose a career that's more insulated from that, um, so that's kind of how I matriculate into it. So growing up, I kind of said, okay, well, I'm not really in the law. I don't know that much about it, but
Hmm.
medicine, okay, I'm kind of interested. I watched the Cosby Show, and he was a doctor. So woo woo woo.
Yeah.
So for the longest, I thought I wanted to go become a sports medicine doctor. Thought I wanted to become an anesthesiologist, and so I went to high school for health professions here in Houston. Then I went on to Xavier University of Louisiana in New Orleans, and I graduated with a psychology bachelor's of science with a minor in chemistry. I didn't
Hmm.
decide I wanted to become a dentist until maybe my junior year. And that's because I was really trying to decide what I wanted to do. I was like, man, I don't really know if I want to go to med school for the traditional stuff anymore. I
Hmm.
kind of checked anesthesiology out of it because I was shadowing one time. And the first time I went in to shadow anesthesiologist in high school, I walked in when they was doing a leg amputation. And I walked in
Wow.
right at the point where that leg came off, and
Yeah. Wow.
I was
Not.
like, ooh. I said, I don't
Yeah.
know about this. This is a bit much. So, I like sight, but I had to ask the real question: can this degree pay for itself? So the answer to that is yes, with a lot of hard work. But before I went down that road to commit my life to it, I need to make sure that's what I wanted to do. One of my cousins, who's a pharmacist, she told my folks, "Well, has Andre thought about dentistry?" And I hadn't really. And so I shadowed a few dentists, and it spoke to a lot of stuff I like. Like because my dad's an architect, he did pass on some of those artistic genes. So I can draw. I used to build model cars and model planes and paint.
Hmm.
So I got an artistic ability. Um, so I can deliver on that. And I said, man, dentistry actually speaks to all of that. And I'm
Hmm.
very analytical in a sense. So I do like engineering and I do like architecture by virtue of my dad. So all
Hmm.
that kind of came together, and it's a decision that I made. It was too late in college to try to change the degree path because
Hmm.
I was too close to getting out. So I didn't want to commit myself to staying there. I said, okay, look, I can graduate with this degree,
Hmm.
and it's only going to leave a couple of other courses I need to do for prerequisites. So I ended up working after I graduated for about 3 years, and then got on in the dental school. Took classes that I need to take at night for prerequisites. Took the DAT test to get on in, and then went to Meharry in Nashville, and that's where I wanted to go. It's only one of
Yep.
three right now. One of only three HBCUs for a doctorate degree. The other two being Howard, of course, and then Tuskegee Veterinary Medicine School.
Hmm.
You see what
Wow.
I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's in a nutshell how I got to this point to become a
Yeah.
dentist, and I've been practicing dentistry now 13 years.
Let me stop here. We're coming up on 10 minutes on the Hood Scout podcast. Got Dr. Jordan, dentist out of Houston, Texas. Just listen to his story, man. Elite bloodline when it comes to education and a good set of parents. You know, I want to ask you something.
Yep.
Um, going to go back to that foundation, that private school. Do you think how important was it? And let me frame it from another perspective.
Mhm.
Education is a big deal now, especially public, private. I went to all three. I went to private school, I went to public school, I went to charter school. I make no
Hmm.
bones about it. To be honest, I enjoyed probably private school, then charter school, then public school if I had to rank them. And I went to a smaller private school, but I looking back, that was a good option. I probably should have did it more.
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
important was that educational catalyst? And then also, do you think that it was important for you that you got that in? I know it's gonna sound dumb, but you got that intelligence from your dad. Like, if your dad wasn't an architect, if your mom wasn't an educator, would you have been able to go through dental school or go through college and get some of these advanced degrees? Like, is it kind of like a intelligence thing that got passed down, or is it a work ethic? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Man, you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that because, to be frank, and this is not to dump. I'm gonna do my best to not talk like a sailor on the podcast, but
Yeah.
this is not to dump on anybody who has a quote unquote struggle story. Hey, I came up from the hood and had to do this and all that. But I didn't experience that. Okay. Oftentimes, in fact, 9 times out of 10, 90% of the time, when you go across social media or movies or whatever, you get the
Hmm.
story like you get the struggle story. And I don't
Yeah.
want to knock that because I
Hmm.
applaud anybody that comes up from their circumstances and molds themselves and do it. But there's kind of a flip side to that. That story gets told so often because it is legitimate to where it almost has the reverse effect or the side effect that's stating that your surroundings, your atmosphere, how you were brought up, certain things are superfluous and unneeded. And it's like the people that's the quote unquote haves, had it easy. I didn't have it easy. You know what I'm
Wow.
saying? Like, my folks worked hard, but like I said, I've seen them at the top and I've seen them at
Hmm.
the bottom.
Hmm.
And we all bleed the same blood, right?
Hmm.
Now, yeah, you have some people that are afforded advantages, but I wasn't a straight A student, and I wasn't a straight A student because I don't think I ever applied myself to the degree that I should have. Now, I've also, and I think I'm very intelligent, I think I'm very smart, but I know plenty of people that I feel like are smarter than me. They
Hmm.
might tell me otherwise, but the reason why that's beautiful is because there is no just flat line, hey, you smarter than me.
Yeah.
No, you might know more than me about this. Like, that's the thing. You got to know when you're talking to somebody who is more versed, more intelligent, more scripted, more cultured, more sculpted in their whatever arena, in their knowledge base.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, for me, I only speak on stuff that I feel like I'm a veritable expert on. You talk to me about cars, you talk to me about airplanes, you might as well be talking to the people that made them because
Yeah.
that's
Wow.
how deep I am into that.
Hmm.
When you talk to me about football, I like football, but I'm not as versed as the next person, so I'm gonna take a back seat. You
Hmm.
talk to me about politics, I know a lot about it, but I recognize when somebody is more versed in a subject matter than I am. You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So, and I
Yep.
think the key is to recognize those things. So, for me, I'm gonna tell you what was instrumental to really hone in on your question.
Hmm.
Um, my folks showed me how we were living. My
Hmm.
folks saw that I liked that stuff. My
Yeah.
parents recognized that I had a big interest in certain things, so they fed those things, right? Like, when it comes to playing sports, for example, I was actually on the swim team and I played a little bit of football, right? Um, they put me in. Kenny Smith used to play for the Rockets. Put me in his basketball camp one summer. I sucked at it. You put me out there. If you pick me to be on your team, we probably gonna lose straight up.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm comfortable with that.
Yep.
Now if we talking about football or swimming, then we gonna roll. We about to roll, right?
Yep.
So my folks tried that. I said, yo, I suck at this. I still stuck it out, did the whole thing, but I didn't go any further into the lane of basketball, right?
Hmm.
Now, they saw that I was interested in cars and traveling. They recognized that, well, if you like to do that stuff, it costs to do that stuff. So, this is
Hmm.
what you need to do to position yourself to be able to do that stuff for yourself when you're on your own, right?
Mm,
Um, so it was very important for me to study and work. They told me, like when I turned 16,
mhm,
you know, I thought, oh man, I'm ready. I'm about to get my license. It's time for me to get a car or whatever.
mhm,
Yeah, I want the BMW. I want the three series. You give me the 318 coupe. You know what I'm
mhm.
saying? Like how you think that the quote unquote rich boy would get or whatever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
My folks said, okay, you know what? Um, one, you're not gonna get no car till you got a job. So
Mm,
I got a job, a little weekend job, working at the Museum of Health and Medical Science. It wasn't enough to pay for no car, but it was enough to show that I
yeah.
can work and
Work
I have
ethic. Yep,
responsibility, right?
yep.
So they said, all right, well, we're gonna buy you any car that you want as long as Mazda makes it.
Mm.
So my first, but I was cool with that because
Yeah,
at that time we talking about the 90s, Mazda made a lot of
yeah.
stuff I like. Like
Yep.
I think at that time my mom had a Mazda 929,
Mhm,
and my very first car was a Miata, and I was cool with that because I like sports cars anyway. Um,
mhm,
Unfortunately had an accident in it, of course, but then I ended up with a Mazda RX-7 twin turbo. I found it used. My dad was kind of into cars, so he helped. He liked that car too, so he was like, "Well, look, son, we're gonna try to slide this one in.
yeah,
We ain't gonna tell your mama that it's twin
yeah,
turbo and all of
yeah,
that. We just
yeah,
gonna let
yeah.
her know we can get it for 22 grand right now.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
yeah. That's funny. Yep.
Yeah, so it was cool. They showed me that and they showed me that work ethic, and I still had to grind, man. Like it didn't just fall at my front door. I
Yeah.
really, really I didn't get no scholarships or nothing. And sometimes I feel like I kind of kick myself for that because that would have made my path to becoming the professional I am today that much easier. Because it wasn't
Mm.
it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy
Yeah.
at all.
But Doc, let me stop you, Doc. In
Yeah.
my mind goes. So
Right, right,
excuse
right,
me
right.
if
You
I ever
good?
come off career. Yeah, I'm a thinker.
Yeah, you
So
good?
I work around a high school now,
Hmm.
and I'm very big on studying African American culture and history. I don't look at
Hmm.
it through a racialized lens of I hate white people. I hate I look
Right,
at the study who are we, how we are, how do we get where we are, and how can we improve our situations, whether that's middle class, lower class, or even studying those who are successful, which is what I said I'd do with this podcast.
right.
That education as it and I don't know why I'm going back to this foundational piece, but that
Mhm.
education, I know you said your people showed you, hey, if you want these nice things, you gotta kind of maybe go down this route.
Right.
Do we, and I don't want to feed into racial stereotypes either,
Hmm.
but do we feed our children education as much as we do? And I'm versing it versus sports versus the arts and entertainment, which is nothing wrong with the music, nothing wrong with those type of things. But you said something interesting earlier. You seen Cosby on TV as a doctor. You don't
Hmm.
see that much on TV. Like,
Right, right,
do
right.
we show our children that education really is the way at a young age versus we doing it when they're all 16, 17, and man, not saying they can't get it at that age, man, but from my philosophical view, you got to pump education in them when they're little rather than it being 18. It's like, hey, you're not going to college, what are you going to do now? Like, are we
Right.
setting that foundation of education as the norm, or do you think sometimes we get caught up in the sports and the arts and all the other stuff that once you look around, it's like, man, I thought I was going pro and now I don't have a job. Speak to that a
Yeah,
little bit.
man.
Is that a real thing?
Yeah, it's a very real thing. Here's the thing. I It's tough. It's tough, tough, tough because, for example, I don't think everybody should go to college, right? And the reason why I say that, if I didn't go, my degree, my psychology degree is a degree to set me up to get another degree. It's if I stopped with just a bachelor's in that, I wouldn't be doing anything fruitful, so to speak. You know what I'm
Ooh, that's
saying?
a good point. Yeah, yeah.
Right. So we first of all have a fundamental, and you probably could make the case for America in general, not just black
Hmm.
folks, but we
Hmm.
black, so I'll speak to that.
Hmm.
We don't have a fundamental understanding of education anyway of the system,
Ooh,
right?
Lord.
Because right, so let's say if we start off with a child, and I don't have any kids, but like I said, my other degree is psychology, and so I like you, I have an interest in those things. I believe that you got the transference, the cocooning from the moth into the butterfly and all that kind of stuff, the caterpillar into the butterfly and woo woo woo, where you got a child playing with child stuff, playing. Okay, he's playing, playing, playing. Now he's in elementary school. Now he's showing some talent doing this, doing that. And then he's in middle school, right? That middle school time where we start to matriculate and we transform puberty and all that, our
Mhm.
family has to also do that. They have to also recognize when, this is a childhood situation and he or she may or may not be good enough to
Yeah.
push this all the way through. And when we say good enough, it's plenty of folks out there, playing ball at whatever courts, whatever Y's, whatever gyms that's better than Kobe RIP. You know what I'm saying? But they're never
Yep.
discovered
Yep.
because even in my case, getting in dental school, it took some people to know some people. Sometimes it takes somebody just put a
Yeah.
bug in somebody. Hey, look at
Yeah.
that boy right there, and
Yep.
that's something that isn't all the time in our control. So, the parental units need to recognize when what you're doing in middle school is cool, playing ball or whatever. But that's when we need to intercede and recognize, is this childhood behavior being carried on into adulthood? Or is it childhood behavior that is actually something to be honed into professionalism? And if that's the case, we need to start filtering in that backup plan. For example, one of my middle school classmates, he played for Butler during that time period, and he was in the Final Four and all that. But he was up
Wow.
here with it. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
So he
Yep.
knew, okay, I did this, but I
Yep.
need a backup situation. And I think
Yep.
that's where we have to jump into it. And I also feel like we need to really, and this is where I think America falls behind, period. We don't have enough. We do have too many people going into college, partly because it's turned into indentured servitude for the economic
Mhm.
system.
Yeah, it
But we
has.
need
Yep.
more people into trade schools. We need more
Yeah.
talent, more
Yeah.
skills.
I
Because if I
call it
didn't go
coach.
to dentistry,
Doc, for some reason, Doc, I call it specialized education. I don't know if that's the right word. I feel like we're so all over. I'm like, man, why is education not more specialized? Like this kid may be something, but you say, oh, you got to
right?
get a bachelor, and now he done wasted money and time when he could have been
He could have
specializing and
already
going
been
down
in the
another path.
right. He
Yeah.
could have been the
Yeah.
mechanic. He could have been the
Yeah.
plumber. Like these are all those jobs, those trade school jobs, the barber, all that kind of stuff that doesn't require a formal education. Those things are fortified against the economy. So if I didn't
Yep.
go to dental school, if I didn't get in dental school, then I would have
Mm-hmm.
gone and become a mechanic and tried to open up my own shop, or I would have gone
Yeah.
join the military straight up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
The other aspect of it, we do need to speak to that. I do think we need to expose our youth to more things.
Mm-hmm.
Like
That's
my
good.
interests growing up, I would have been considered a nerd. Like I was this close
Yeah.
this close to being the kid to get picked on or the nerd type. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? This
Yeah.
close because of my
Yeah.
but I had enough sense to know how to play that right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had enough
Yeah.
sense to know how to be enough, you know what I'm saying, to
Yep.
where I'm not in
Yep.
that lane.
Yep. Yeah.
So
And it's funny you say that because I'm the same way. I think what got me was books and radio, man. I fell in love with the library
mm-hmm.
and not on some I got an advanced degree, but just I love to read. And then
Right.
I fell in love with radio, which not now, but it's been my trade for a lot of years, which is
Mm-hmm.
that's an up and down industry. But I would call radio stations. I was 12, 13 years old calling radio stations talking politics. You got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of kids doing that weird stuff. It's just like I was
Right.
different. But let me ask you this too, and I love this. We're about 24 minutes in, man, just flowing, talking about, we ain't even really led up to the medicine side yet.
Mm-hmm.
How important, and I've thought about this perspective studying and looking at immigrants, how
Mm-hmm.
important is having that example? So it's like, talked about plumbing. I think construction, I see it's really a lot in construction,
Mm-hmm.
where the father, and some of those guys are making big money, but the father may be a contractor or construction magnate.
Mm-hmm.
Little 15-year-old Timmy has a work shirt on, he's working with dad. So he's
Hmm.
already getting ushered into the trade.
Right.
Is that to me, that's kind of something. And I know sometimes in our situations, like your father, prolific, and I know in a way you will be the 1% of black people, just to be honest. So,
Right.
my dad's been a city worker for the past 30 years. That
Hmm.
maybe a postal worker is a little bit maybe the norm. Is it that we have kind of that issue where our parents can actually show us how to do it? Like, is that a issue? Because when it comes to the trade, when it comes to the plumber, when it comes to the electrician, the mechanic, can a kid be into that without their parent kind of pushing them and showing them, hey,
Um,
this is the way?
well, it's tough because a child can't raise themselves, right? Because
Yeah,
then you just
yeah,
have an adult that's a child mind, adult body, child mind, right?
yep.
That's when you have folks out there with deviant behaviors, addicted to making fast money, don't have a work
Hmm.
ethic, addicted to women or men or whatever, right?
Yep, yep.
Um, it breeds those type of things. I think one of the things that we've lost when I think about just the influence of music, influence of TV, growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was a lot of programs on that you could see that kind of made a lot of stuff cool, right?
Yep.
I used to watch Airwolf, Knight Rider, Cosby Show, Family Matters, whatever.
Yeah,
You just see all
yeah,
types of stuff. X
yeah,
Men was on,
yeah.
and Batman. So
Hmm.
and Batman, he didn't have no superpowers, but he had that money and that mind.
Yeah,
And he was
yeah.
grinding, had all the cool gadgets. Well, now it's overrun with a lot of reality TV,
It
and a
is.
lot of that exemplifies like quick money stuff,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow.
And so I was talking to somebody, and this might jump the shark a little bit, but
No, it's fine, man. I like it.
yeah, I was talking to somebody who was talking about, yeah, I really want to do this side business, make this side money or whatever, right? And
Hmm.
it was a hard conversation because we all say that. We
Yep.
all say, hey, I want multiple streams of income. Hey,
Yeah.
I want mailbox money. Hey, I want a
Yep.
side gig, right?
Yep.
The thing is, we have kind of bastardized those terms and made them all mean the same thing. And they're
Yeah.
not the same thing, right? Multiple streams of income is fine. But are we talking about something that brings in $20 a month extra, or two
Yep.
thousand a month extra, or 20,000 a month extra, right?
Yep. Yep.
The thing is, all three of those have come to signify something quick, something easy, right?
Ooh. Yep.
Um, Once your side hustle brings in more money and takes up more time than your main hustle, it is now your main hustle. And
Mm.
anything that's going to bring in big bucks, besides outlying stuff, because you do have some people that hit licks, you have some
Yeah.
people right place, right time. Some people it's just chance favors a prepared mind, right? They're
Yep.
fortuitous like that. But historically speaking, anything
Hmm.
that's going to bring in big money is going to take in big time and big effort and big
Yeah.
investment. You either
Yep.
going to have to put in a whole bunch of money and or a whole bunch of time to
Hmm.
make it do its thing. If it don't take much, then expect much. You're going to get little
Yep.
return. Like the common thing in dentistry, a lot of dentists want to jump into real estate. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do
Wow.
this, and I'm gonna get this over here, and then I might have it as an investment property, and then I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this. And a lot of dentists do it successfully, but the reality is, what they don't tell you about that type of game is, it's easy to say I'm a hire management company and woo 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 woo. The fact is, if you wanted to give you a quick return or a big return, you're either gonna have to be boots on the ground with it, in
Hmm.
there, making sure that stuff is painted right and the tenants and all that, or you're gonna have to put in big money up front to get into the game. You know,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
it's just like with crypto now. I'm not a big
Yeah.
crypto head, but if I want to go jump into Bitcoin, I'm not gonna make no real money off of putting in, three
A little
thousand
bit.
dollars.
Hmm.
I got to
Yep.
come in dropping 200 grand.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
that's just what it is. Or if I'm gonna make big money off putting in $3,000, I'm gonna be riding that wave for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So we have to be realistic with our expectations. And I don't
Hmm.
think people are realistic. And what happens is if you go into a side hustle with the mentality that this is a side hustle, when you get hit with the reality that what it's going to take, you're going to have to sink or swim. You're going to have to go ahead and dive 100% into it or get out,
Yeah.
you know?
Wow. Wow. 30 minutes in the Scout podcast, and that's good. Let me, Doc. And before I go to my next point, when we talk about real estate, is that real estate in dentistry, or is that real estate in general, just houses and business real estate?
No, so that's the problem. I wish they would do it in dentistry, but most of us dentists don't do that. Most of them try to jump out of dentistry and do it in other arenas, right?
Okay.
Um, and you could probably pull on 5 other dentists on the podcast right now that will try to refute that, because now this is the part that is more of a subjective thing. If it worked for you, it worked for you. I just
Yeah.
know what it takes to make a successful or even solvent dental practice, and it
Yeah.
takes a lot. So,
Wow.
and it's nothing like when you strip down the layers of, like, I'm in my practice now. Yeah, I can take the dental chairs out of here, whatever. If you take the dental chairs, I put barber chairs in. Now it's a barber shop. You
Yeah.
still got the same bones of a business that you got to make,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so knowing what it takes to make a solvent business and getting it from the mud, because I did start my practice from scratch, no bank loan, from
Wow.
starting it like that.
Hmm.
um, the prospect of creating something else like that is scary to me. So if I
Yeah.
create something else like that, my expectation would be that I'm not going to put as much effort. I'm going to work smarter in it, but I I won't expect it to yield the same yields that I have here. But my
Hmm.
hope is that if I apply the same work ethic to whatever else I were to do, then it will yield
Yeah.
large returns, right?
Yeah.
That's the hope.
Hmm. Let me ask you this, and we're gonna lead up to dentistry. I know we kind of hitting on
Mhm.
a lot of stuff, but I like that. That's how my mom works, so
Yeah,
I hope you're okay with that.
yeah, yeah.
Going back to college, and whether it's dental school or whether it's when you get your undergrad, what was those studying patterns like? I told you, I knew a dentist, and as far well, she is a dentist, but the work ethic, I was there in the beginning, seeing the boots on the ground, and just I gotta go to study hall, I gotta go to tutor, just a constant. I got a big test, kind of a constant. You're in it, you're in the field trying to get that. It's not easy, and this is a person that was smart. What are those study habits like? What is the how much time is invested into getting what it is? Everybody sees the money or the glitz and the glamour, but how much how much investment do you got to make from a academic standpoint? Let me phrase it like that.
Um, so I pledged in dental school my junior year in dental school when I was in the clinics, right?
Hmm.
Beside that was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life besides dental school, right?
Okay.
Um, college, my first year of college, I almost got put out first semester because it was so
Hmm.
many. The ratio at Xavier was like 22-1. My mind was blown by seeing all the beautiful women. You know what I'm saying?
Man, that's down in what part of Louisiana? That's New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Woo, yeah.
So,
It's a lot of people in medicine come out of Xavier for
yeah,
whatever reason. They got yeah, yeah.
yeah, they have a strong program that really pushes that. But first time away from home, man, the parties, all that kind of stuff, HBCU, like I almost failed out the thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I had to really buckle down and get my stuff together, and it was a constant grind. When
Mhm.
I went off to dental school, man, I almost failed out of that too. Almost
But let me
behind.
stop you though. Let me stop you though. When you say
Yeah.
constant grind, explain that. What does that mean to what in layman's terms? What is a constant grind?
Well, so which is good. I'm glad we're gonna dig into that. So in college, I felt like, I mean, I was intelligent in high school, and I was a solid high, like B+ student, to be real.
Hmm.
If I applied myself more, then I could have been straight A. But I
Hmm.
still enjoyed what I enjoyed, right? So I didn't devote as much time to it. When I transitioned, I don't think my study habits were strong enough when I transitioned from high school to college.
Okay.
Now, during that time, in hindsight, after going to dental school,
Hmm.
the requirement for studying to me in college meant actually devoting that studying every night, 2 to 3 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? You have to
Hmm.
make adult decisions about what you're about your time management. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Hey, and what's important, you know,
Okay.
compartmentalizing stuff. That's
Yep.
the time where you learn those tactics. So it, I would say you, I mean, you buckling down studying 2 to 3 hours a day or a night in
Hmm.
college, depending on where you feel your aptitude level is, right?
Yep.
And how rigorous of a curriculum you have, right? Now,
Yep.
dental school was different. That was no matter how hard you studied, because dental school is identical to medical school. So I
Yeah.
chuckle now, you know, after being 13 years in the game, you
Hmm.
when you hear people say stuff like, "Oh, dentist ain't no doctor," I used to get triggered by that when I was a baby doc, right? But
Yeah.
now I don't. That all that
Don't even
does is
phase it.
it don't phase me
So,
because
so it shows you that it shows their ignorance.
right, exactly. So it doesn't phase me. But the thing is, it's identical. Like we're breathing the same air. Like at Meharry, we're in the classes with the med students for the first two
Yep.
years, but after we finish the class we have with them, we got to go learn the dental stuff. So even though I'm biased, I can tell you if I had to be stuck on a desert island, I'd rather be stranded with a dentist versus a medical doctor because we have to
Wow.
know everything and then some, you know. And that's not shout out to the medical doctors out there, you know, they do what they do and they have their specialty, but they learn their trade in their residencies afterwards. We have to learn
Mm.
everything within that
Wow.
4 years. And if we decide to go to specialize into something else, we can, you know, but our standardized exams and licensure exams, all that's happening in the course of this curriculum, right? So I'm talking about you're spending like all night long type study, like 5 6 hours a night on this stuff. You know, study
Wow.
groups. You're trying to come
Yeah.
up with different stuff, only for the class average on the test to be 40 out of 100, right? But the
Yeah.
thing is, when you see those type of exams, that's by design. You realize that hey, the test isn't testing what you thought it was testing, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. You see what
Yeah.
I'm
No, I do.
saying? Yeah.
Yep.
So it's more of a dental school requires you to change your mindset
Hmm.
about what studying is. Studying isn't memorizing, and the people who just memorize to get through, they may have been successful on paper, but they weren't successful in application. You see what I'm
Wow.
saying? It's about
Yeah.
how you conceptualize stuff. So if I talk about the dental school curriculum specifically, the first half of it is mainly didactic stuff, classes, tests. The
Hmm.
second half is a little bit classes and tests, but you working on patients. You got practical stuff. You got labs. You got skill set stuff. So nobody, it's a rare student. You might have one or two people in the class, and usually those going to be your top three people in the whole class that are good all the way around. That killed it in the studies, in the
Hmm.
grades, with the
Hmm.
academic stuff, and killed it with their hands, with their skill set. Because the human
Gotcha.
mind ain't wrapped that way. Most of us are
Yeah.
either didactic, the rest of us are more artistic, left brain versus right brain stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh huh.
I'm cold with my hands. So I
Okay.
had to work my ass off in the first 2 years of dental school just to see me and free me, or maybe get some B's, a couple A's here, but mainly a B minus, B solid B type student, right? With some
Hmm.
lower grades mixed in there, right? But when I got to the clinics where I'm working with the patients and giving and doing the actual work,
Hmm.
I was in the top tier of the class. I'd say I would I'm very humble, but I
Hmm.
hands down say in my class with my hand skills, I was in the top three. The thing is, us
Wow.
three that consider that, each one of us would say the other is better. You know what I'm
Oh wow.
saying? You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
but definitely in the top three with my hand skills. But I was in the lower half,
Yeah.
the bottom 50% of the class with the academics because I was
Mm.
struggling to really get that knowledge and conceptualize it and turn it over into to grade stuff. But in
Hmm.
the end, it all comes together, you know,
Yeah.
because at the
Yeah.
end in dental school, the tests that you take and licensure exams you take, they're standardized, they're national. So
Okay.
you take them, you pass or you do whatever, then you've met the requirements to practice dentistry and woo 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 woo. So it's not quite like law school where they look at, oh, well, this lawyer you get, he didn't do that well in such and such school and he went to such and such school. No, we have standardized exams. The
Yeah.
licensors are standardized. You in there, I don't care if you went to Harvard School of Dentistry or
Hmm.
whatever, it doesn't matter. Like
Yep.
it really doesn't matter. The question is the person you going to a licensed person? Which you got
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
going to unlicensed people.
Which is crazy. That sounds like some
Right,
BBL stuff.
right,
Oh,
right.
yeah, yeah, man. Was you still talking? I don't want to interrupt you
No,
for
no, no,
interviews.
no, no.
Okay,
That's cool.
okay.
Yeah,
40 minutes in, man. I love this. And I hope you got some more time, man, because we're
yeah.
just talking, and I really enjoy this. And this is a person that's not skilled in medicine, so I don't want to act like I even know half of some of this stuff. That's why I
Mhm,
got you, and I'm picking your brain. I
mhm,
looked up the statistics about a week ago. I don't know what I was nerding out. I think we got 5% of dentists, I think, are black. Does that sound pretty right? About 5%, 4%, 5%?
yeah, it used to be 3%. So,
Yeah,
I'd give it 5%.
yeah, really, really low. And shoot, even right now, I need to go to the dentist for real. So it's kind of funny, but I phrase it like that because that's going back to kind of our community. A lot of people don't really talk about that stuff. I guess it's just like health, really, but that's a big deal within our community. Dental health, regular health. Um, where is that missing link at? And let me also throw this in there.
Mhm.
Is that missing link affordability? And because I'm gonna be honest, man, dentistry is a kind of a expensive. If you need to get some work done, it's expensive. And I don't know if it was the same way back in the '80s or back in the '70s or back in the '90s. I'm sure some of it has changed. I remember the person that I know was talking about insurance and different things, and people were getting upset. I had to come and you charged me this much just to take a tooth out. you know, what, how's the affordability of dentistry as it relates to the Black American community, whether it's economically, whether like as far as where is that missing link? Because in health and in dental health, we kind of lag behind when we start looking at some of this health data. Is it a matter of
Yeah.
people can't afford to go, they don't want to go? Speak to that a little bit if you can.
Well, first of all, people be scared of the dentist.
Yeah.
Um, that plays a bigger role. In fact, that plays the biggest role when I think about my patient base. That plays the biggest role in it. Most of my
Hmm.
patients are terrified of the dentist, and they've neglected their health because of it. Right? We failed as a community to attach your oral health to the rest of your body.
Yeah.
So the bulk of the population, they basically, if you just peel back the layers to the lowest common denominator, they chalk us up to being tooth plumbers and just whatever, right? Same stuff that where you have people saying the dentist isn't the doctor. That's where that notion is born from. It's just not having a fundamental understanding of the way things work, right? Um, and then when you have an anxiety around it, you build up a fear around it or stigma around it, then all it does is reinforce bad understanding, right? Um, Cost wise, you have dentists, like, for example, my primary thing is cosmetics and veneers. Um,
Hmm.
the markup on that compared to what it costs to actually do it to how much the average cost of doing it is, it's like 300-400%, right? So that's why you have people going out the country and going to veneer techs and garbage people and all that, because there's such a gulf of space in price. So in my office, I intentionally price low. Like, I look to see how much does it cost without compromising quality. How much does it cost for me to do it? What is a healthy profit margin to make on it? And that puts us at about maybe 20% more than, or maybe 30% more than people will go getting substandard care out the country, right?
Yep.
Um, so you have some things where they've just run it up. Dentists have run up the price, and dentists historically will die by their pricing, right? Um, that's a whole different conversation,
Was
because
it always like that? Was it always like that? For instance, let's say, and I'm
Mhm.
32. So was it always like, let's say, I know people go to Mexico. They say it's some stuff cheaper out there. But was it always like to go to the dentist back in the '80s? Was that cheaper than it is to go now?
Um, yeah, but the thing about back in the 80s,
Well, no, or
and
'90s.
I
You know, I'm
ain't,
just making up a time period.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the thing about doing it back in the 80s, even before, is that it used to be when you build it, they would come because there was still a shortage. You know, it's still something
Wow.
that people have to go to. Now you have more dentists out there, so you have to. It's still it's still not enough dentists for the population, but there's enough out there to where you have to now advertise. You have to now market. You know, you have to do this. It's not like I opened up, everybody come knocking on my door. That's not the case. You know, we have our own issues within the career, within the yeah, within the career that we have to contend with. Like we have, like medicine, for example, they kind of let insurance and managed care kind of take the doctor out of it, you know? So, like the
Yeah.
medical doctors don't have as much control over their income as they used to. So, on average, dentistry is more lucrative than becoming a medical doctor, right?
Wow.
And what we're fighting in dentistry is that you got all these chain dentals and these
Yeah.
dental service organizations that come in and really try to squeeze and push the amount of
Yeah.
money that the dentist can generate down.
Yeah.
You see,
Yeah.
so there, that's what we're kind of fighting with now. You know, um, so I don't know what dentistry looks like in the next 15 to 20 years. You
Hmm.
know, um, but it's different even from when I first got out.
Yeah.
You know, and see, when I first got out of dental school, I worked in public health. I've co-owned a mobile dental unit for the county, for Harris County here in Houston, that went to the
Wow.
homeless shelters.
Good
And
stuff.
I've,
Yes. Yeah.
you know, and I've worked in my own practice and done cosmetics, worked for other private practice owners, and I can say for me, my favorite was working in public health, right? But over time it becomes thankless because the
Wow.
compensation isn't there like you'd want it to
Mm.
be for the work you do. And then you do come across, when you come across certain patients that aren't thankful for the work that
Wow.
you're doing, then all it
Yeah.
takes is a string of patients like that, and you be like, man, bump this, I need to go make some bread. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
um for me starting my own dental practice, I
Hmm.
just had a number I wanted to make a year, man, and it wasn't an obscene number.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't cut myself short. I felt I was falling consistently short by working for people of that
Hmm.
number by about 20 grand a year. But whether it was
Mm.
two
Now, now,
dollars,
now, 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 is this working for private owners or working for corporations type stuff? Dentistry.
both,
Okay.
both. Yep, 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 yep. Like, you know, working for somebody, you can make, like if I was making the my number, I don't
Hmm.
have to. I don't need my name on the door. None of that. Like it,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't. That doesn't move me like that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Um, but being on the other side, it's easy to armchair CEO when you work for somebody. You know,
Yeah.
oh, I don't like how they doing that. Why they doing it like this and all
Hmm.
that. You don't have a choice because you don't have a frame of reference. But being on
Hmm.
the other side, I understand 100% where doctors that I worked for, where their mindset was. You know, because
Yeah.
I get it. There's a lot of stuff you don't know what you don't know.
Hmm.
You know, so that's, I guess, to answer your original question about the affordability of dentistry. Um, Dentists are going to be forced to change. Like me doing cosmetics, we
Hmm.
felt the squeeze. I'm not going to lie, we did feel the squeeze from veneer techs, and we felt the squeeze from overseas dentistry, right? Both of which are a substandard option. Like I'm going on record to let you know,
Yeah.
both of which are not a viable option for somebody who values their well-being. Straight up.
Hmm.
There's
Yeah.
no there's no way to do it. The only way that we're going to stop people from going to these substandard people and
Hmm.
going to these countries we shouldn't be going to for the work, because there are some countries that are good, but the ones that we always hear about, they ain't good. They bad,
Yeah.
straight up
Hmm.
bad. The only way
Wow.
that you stop that is by shaming that. Because the only reason why anybody would do that ain't because it's better, it's because it's cheaper.
Hmm.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Yep.
nobody would be wowing, oohing, and ahhing at a Lamborghini Urus truck if it was only $5,000.
Yeah. Real talk.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, we found a way to act like that's a stunt or something. Oh, I went to
Yeah.
Columbia for mine. That ain't
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once we change that narrative of what's acceptable, then that's when we can start to do better as a people. If somebody tell me they went out the country to get their teeth done, they tell me they went to Panama or Costa Rica or Thailand, then I might be like, oh, okay. Because those countries actually are pretty solid for dentistry. And it ain't
Mhm.
about the money, you
Mhm.
know, because the only savings and money you have is based upon the exchange rate. You see what I'm saying?
Wow. Okay.
Whereas these other countries, it's based upon the lack of skill set, the substandard materials,
Yeah.
the fact that there's no regulation. You talk about
Okay.
Mexico, the water isn't even regulated.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. 50 minutes in, talking Dr. Jordan out of Houston. Doc, I love the candor, the honesty, that you're talking with, and I appreciate it. And it's funny you bring up like the way dentistry and you can argue medicine is going because
Mhm.
I see a lot of dentist office popping up, and it's like you can tell, and you know better than me, so I don't want to misspeak and act like I'm some guru,
Yeah.
but it seems like it's becoming more corporate, where you had, the private practice. And I guess this is a question maybe you already answered, but kind of throw at you. The private practice where it was a guy working in dentistry. I wonder is that type of guy being squeezed out for the corporations where it's like every day it's a new company. It seems like, I'm not gonna name no names, but it's like this company, it's that company. It's like it feels very fly by nightish on the outside looking in.
It's tough. It's very, very tough because everything you said is spot on. They are trying to squeeze us out. And and I mean, to be real, if one of these whatever corporate companies walk in my door right now and said, "Here, Dr. Jordan, here's 5 million," I'm get up and go out right this second. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like you'd be foolish not to.
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't stop practicing dentistry, but yeah, hey, you give me 5 mil, cool. And like I said, you can make that in dentistry easily, but
Mhm.
that goes back to what we talked about when we first started, that work and that grind. When you own
Yeah.
your own, it's never any, you're not off.
Yeah.
The idea that your stuff is going to be on autopilot no matter what, I don't care if you own the best lemonade stand out there on the street,
Yeah.
you never are off. It's going to consume your thought process. It's going to
Wow.
consume the way you look at things. For example, we close for the Labor Day holiday today. We'll be
Uh-huh.
closed tomorrow, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. We're going
Ooh.
to take the admin day, right?
Okay.
Well, and you see, I'm in my t-shirt. I'm
Yeah.
chilling.
Yep.
However, I had to come in this morning at 10 a.m. because somebody's temp, she did something she wasn't supposed to, and the temp came. I had to put some in with Tim Cement today. Somebody sent a message on the phone. I don't know what in the world she did with her temporaries, but I got to come in here tomorrow and get her fixed up. So it's
Wow.
like you never off,
Yeah.
because you still are a doctor, you still have a Hippocratic oath, so you got to look out for your people.
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not gonna just sit up chilling with some yak or a glass of scotch while
Yeah.
somebody's out there huddled out when I
Yeah.
know I can do something. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I work. We were closed, but I worked today. I'm gonna have to work tomorrow on somebody. You know,
Yeah.
you
And
know.
and,
So
and, and I just want to stop and say too.
yeah,
I'm just we're gonna go about 10 more minutes. I don't want because I don't want to consume your time. But I
yeah.
noticed when you said, hey man, I got the time today, and I was like, man, I wonder did that close or they closed because I wouldn't expect you to be closed on Friday. So when you said that, I was like, wonder was you closed or you made your own hours. So I was thinking about that.
Yeah. So no, we typically I work Monday through Friday. We try to work first appointment like at 9 a.m. and try to take the last appointment at 3. But realistically, it depends on what we're doing. We've been here. I've been in the office, man, till 2 in the morning before. So
Wow.
it's like you got to do what you got to do. I try not to work on Saturdays anymore,
Okay.
but I leave
Hmm.
Saturdays kind of available. They're there if I need to use them for something. Because I have a
Yeah.
lot of patients that come in from out of town for the cosmetic stuff. So sometimes you got to make it do what it do, right? So
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. The problem when I said if I say that I'm open on Saturdays, people aren't serious. Everybody wants Saturday,
Mm. Yep.
but when the Saturday come, if it's sunny outside, they don't show up. If it's rainy outside, they don't show up because it's always something that's going to come up on the weekend that's way more interesting and fun than coming to the dentist. So the
Wow.
no-show rate is high, high, high on Saturdays unless you invest in being that person that's open on Saturday. And when you do that, it ends up being a grind. And
Ooh.
now you even though I like dentistry and a lot of dentists don't like it, but
Yeah.
I like it a lot, but I don't want to burn myself out either.
Yeah.
I like to
Yeah. That's real.
travel and do all that.
Really
So
enjoy your fruits of your labor.
exactly, exactly. You don't want to be the grind for the grind.
Yeah.
That's why I don't have a problem with, you know, one thing that we have bad as a people, as a culture, you got two sides of it. You got the people who are real sure with their things and
Hmm.
almost paganistic in worshiping material items, right?
Yeah.
And that's where you have your music videos and the stunting this and that
Yep.
and the swag, this and all that. There's nothing wrong with that. You just can't worship those things. But the backlash is the other side of the black population, or even the regular population, the middle class population.
Hmm.
They feel like you're supposed to be humble and not show all that. My thing is this: you cannot work for work. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
You
Yeah.
have to have a release. You have to have an interest, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor. You can't let those things bring you down.
Yeah.
But like I tell anybody, there was I told you I'm into cars and I'm a big Porsche fan, right? And
Ooh.
growing up, I remember
Doc
there
say
was
he got a Porsche. I see you, Doc.
I'm a huge, huge, huge Porsche fan,
Me
right?
too. Me too.
Yeah, and I like all cars, and I've had different types of cars, Um, but I'm a huge Porsche fan. I remember growing up, they had a commercial where they showed these different Porsches doing stuff. They had one dude who went to the hardware store and his boots and stuff, and he had some lumber, and he came out and put it inside of a Cayman, right? And then when he closed the thing, it said pickup truck, right? Then they had a dude who was working, he like working an office job. That boy
Hmm.
came out with his head down. He was dragging his coat on the floor, his suit jacket, like he was about to cry. He walked up and saw his 911 parked there, and he got in it and he smiled and it said, "Getaway car," you know.
Yeah.
And then the other one, it had two kids waiting on after school. The mama pulled up in a 911 Turbo that was yellow and it said school bus, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, that was the release. It's like I get that. Like for me being a
Yep.
car guy, if I have a grueling day that where I
Yeah.
have worked nonstop, thankless, potentially, because you do have
Yep.
some patients that are hard to deal with. You've been beating
Yeah.
them all day long.
Yep.
If I go get in a 20-year-old half running Corolla, shout out to
Yep.
you if you got a Corolla out there. But if I
Yep.
get in that, what that's all you might as well give me a gun with bullet in it, man. And let
Yeah.
me like like
Doc,
you
Doc, Doc, let me stop you, Doc. With 58 minutes here, do you got at least 10 more minutes?
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna pause this for about 2 minutes. Let me go do something really quick, and I'm gonna come back because I got a lot of stuff to ask you, and I love the way that you're very balanced because you have. I remember, which I don't know, you might have a imagine. I remember it was a guy down here, and I don't know who the guy is. It's
Mhm.
a middle class area by the name of DeSoto, Texas. I don't know if you
Yeah,
ever
I
heard
know
of
the
DeSoto,
Soto.
Texas. And it was a big white house right on the corner of an area that's kind of an upper middle class, and it was like,
Mhm.
hey, that's the dentist house. And so the point I'm making is, I like that you can talk about, hey, I got me a portion, I like it, but it's
Mhm.
not. It's also not to the point where it's like I'm gonna get 10 portions. And if you got 10, there's nothing wrong with it. But it's the balance of
Yeah.
I worked for it, I got it, I appreciate it, and it's okay
Mhm.
saying it versus the I gotta have 20. Look at me, look
Right.
at this. Like that's a
Right.
balance. So I'm a let me go do something really quick and I'm gonna come back
Mhm.
because I wanna we gotta dig into your own practice and I'm liking this. So if you got at least 10 to 14
I got
minutes, we'll continue. Okay, I'll be right back, Doc. Hold that
yes,
thought too,
sir.
because I wanna get back to you having a Porsche. I think that's a cool thing. 1 second.
All right.
Oh, all right, Doc, I'm back. You good?
Yeah, yeah, you good.
Oh man, you raised a beautiful point, Doc, which is you said if I go out and got a broke down Corolla, after a hard day, I might end it. Not metaphorically speaking, obviously.
Right.
Um, Continue with that. I think that's a very interesting point.
Yeah, I mean, like you got to be fed. Like we're not machines. We're not meant to plug into the matrix and live to work and work to live. Like you got to feed what feeds you and pushes you. Like you can't have the pursuit of pleasure,
Mhm,
but you have to have that balance for your sanity. Because if you work hard, then what are you working for?
mhm,
Now some people I know just people say, oh, I'm not into cars or whatever, whatever, whatever. That's fine. But that sector of the population, the fallacy is like, oh, you getting this Porsche, you getting this Benz or whatever, you getting this just to be flashy.
yeah,
No, some people do. Some
yeah,
people that is why they do it. But you
yeah.
have somebody like me who's a true gearhead. Like
Car
if
guy.
Toyota
Yeah,
made the 911, I would still get it. You see what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's like
yep,
because I'm a car guy. I was that way growing up. So
yeah.
that's the stuff that I'm into, right? And you have to the key is get stuff for you and not for other people. That's the
Ooh,
key, you know.
man.
And if people would do that, I think you'll cut out a lot. But you do have some people that are moved by the reaction that you get.
Yeah.
Like just to be frank, um, when I talk to people and I go to car shows and all that kind of stuff, when I come across dudes that say, "Oh yeah, I'm in the cars." Oh really? What kind of stuff you into? Oh man, I like that Escalade and I like. Well, you tell me that you ain't enthused by these cars. You enthused by these. You see what
Yeah.
I'm
Real
saying?
talk. Real
That's
talk. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
shout out to you with Escalade. Escalades are fine, but there's nothing enthusiastic about
Yeah.
driving a 6,000 pound lumbering SUV. Now I know they
Yeah.
got the Escalade V out there with the supercharged motor in the 604. That's cool, but still,
Hmm.
there. I'm not. That's not that's not the same type of thing to me. And I
Hmm.
suppose you might have people that are really enthusiastic about that, but I'm very skeptical of that. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
And it's
So,
funny you say that, Doc. I remember because I remember I was in New York, probably about 5, 6 years ago, and that was a doctor. It was a doctor in a, I don't know if it was a Maybach or just a regular Mercedes, but he had Doctor So and So on the car on the license plate. And not saying that's wrong, but I just thought that was so funny. I was like, he's a doctor and he has his name on his license plate. It's like,
right. It's tough. Like that's a hard one to rationalize because some people, I mean, it's like, hey, they proud of it and they want you to know, I guess.
hmm
I I don't know. I mean, I've done the personalized plate thing before, but it hadn't been for those reasons. I did that
yeah,
stuff when I was like in college and when I was in dental school. Um,
hmm
the last car that I had that I did a personalized plate on, I did that because it was a car I kind of gotten for marketing purposes. You know
mm,
what I'm saying? Like, because
hmm
I have a small YouTube channel myself called Speed Doc 713, and
oh wow,
so I had gotten a wide body Scat Pack Challenger, and
okay,
so I had on the plate 392 Doc. You
yeah,
know, because it's like this car is not one that's traditionally one associated with doctors.
true,
So it's kind
yep,
of cool going to the Mopar meets and then hopping out of it in my scrubs or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And so it brought in business. It was cool. It
yeah.
was cool.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. I think two more minutes. I want to be mindful of your time too. Um, I want to hit at some. You talked about kind of like that almost, and I'm phrasing it my way. You work for it. You got to play a little bit almost, and I'm using my word.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever maybe have that dentist? You can't speak for nobody, but just maybe through your experience, who is all work and no play, and for that person who's all work and work no play, like what would their outlet be? You're collecting, you're saving, you're getting the money, but you don't have the cars, you're not into the houses, you're quote unquote modest. Like what would that person outlet come from? If you can answer that question, I know it's kind of a difficult question.
Yeah. So I don't. from a psychological standpoint, if I dig into my psych background, I don't think that person really exists. Now,
Wow.
they'll tell you they exist because I know plenty of dentists and people that make money that try to say that. You
Mhm.
know, I know plenty. Um, the thing is, I don't trust those people. And
Ooh.
from that standpoint, it's almost like I don't trust them, and what I know about them that has some merit, right?
Ooh,
Because
boy.
like I know a very, very, very wealthy old head dentist, right?
Mhm.
Huge house that he built, and he had gotten this huge piece of property back when nothing was out there.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and he was living on a trailer in a trailer home on this property for decades. So when he
Wow.
finally built this house, it was like some like J.R. Ewing type
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like he was on some like the crib was laid,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, and he drove a raggedy beat up Ram and
Wow.
uh, a Ford cargo van that you think it was Amazon coming if he pulled up, right?
Yeah.
Like a
Mhm.
transit, like a Ford
Yeah.
Transit. And his wife drove a minivan, right? Or an
Wow.
old Camry.
Mhm.
So the thing is, though, he also had like Cougarans, like he worshipped money. So he had like vault in the house with money in, like Scrooge McDuck.
Oh.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? He had
Mhm.
real estate, but his vice was like if you let him tell it, this person sounds like, oh yeah, they're
Yeah.
not
He's
into that.
modest.
He
Yeah.
might,
Yeah.
well, no,
Yep.
having vaults and money and stuff in there, that ain't modest, right?
Wow.
But he also was a big time hunter. He would go up to Alaska and hunt and do
Yeah.
this and do that. He
Yeah.
was big on that, right?
Yeah.
So his that
His
was his
way of. Yeah. That's a good
right,
point.
right.
Yep.
And but then on the flip side, his other pastime was screwing people over. Like he was like a real estate shark,
Oh
you know.
wow.
So like when I hear people, the common trope is people like to say, "Oh, well, the richest people they have
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
they have the Toyota Camrys and the Hondas
Yeah. They wear old blue jeans.
and stuff like that." So I don't believe that either, you
Yeah.
know, because statistically speaking, I know there was a study done about the car sales, and this study is probably 10 years old now. But the study I saw where it said what's the top selling vehicle in the top zip codes in the country,
Mhm.
um, the Mercedes E Class, um, the Tesla Model S, those dominated the list.
I believe
Okay.
it.
And the thing is, that makes sense because the wealthiest, they didn't go out and buy the S class and Maybach, but they still spend 70 grand on something.
Yep.
You
Yep.
see what I'm
Yep.
saying? They
Yep.
not it doesn't make sense for somebody who's wealthy to
Mhm.
to drive around in a Toyota Camry or anything like that
It's like,
because
what are you proving?
what do you prove? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like saving if you really making that kind of money,
Mhm.
you spending 40 grand on a Camry versus an extra $40,000 on something that's nice,
Mhm.
maybe not even be smart because tax purposes. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that doesn't move the needle. The only people that I hear saying that kind of stuff, and this might trigger some people out there, are broke people. So they say these
Ooh.
type of things to make themselves feel more comfortable, right? You know.
Wow. Yeah.
Now I'm not telling you you need to go out there and break the bank
Yeah.
to get
Especially if
stuff
you can't afford it. Yeah.
if you can't afford
Because
it.
that's the other side of the conundrum. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people are, oh, well, no, you know what I'm saying? You just on that flash. No, I know what car I would buy at every price point. I don't care if it's a cash car
Yeah.
or $1 million. I know
Yeah.
at what price point of any car I buy. I'd go back and get me, if I wanted to spend $7,000, I'd find me a beat up Miata and fix it up and have a great time. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Or whatever my needs are. Like there's an enthusiast choice at every price point if you start talking about cars.
Yeah.
So people, if you have somebody out there that's truly like that's a miser,
Mhm.
that's a sick person. That's a lonely person.
Wow.
That's not a likable person because they're also typically a very judgmental person. And
Ooh.
I don't believe that person might exist, but it's not as common as these people would allow you to believe. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
almost like the person who says, "Oh, I don't drink, smoke, or curse."
Yeah. It's like,
They
yeah,
out
but
there.
what you might not do that, but y'all almost want to say, uh oh.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, excuse me, Jesus Christ. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? So
Yep.
that's my thing about it. I don't you you have to question those things because those
Yeah.
if those people are like that, they're going to be a very judgmental person, and typically they are not trustworthy. You
Yeah.
know, that's been
Man,
my
Doc, I love this, Doc, because we done went so many different places, but that was an interesting question. I think that was a great answer because you have that situation, like you say, oh, the rich and the famous, they still drive used cars from when they were 20, or I
right.
know in sports they like to do it, this NFL quarterback drives the car he had in college, and it's like kind of, I guess, to appease the masses, but it's like at the other side is, man, it's something they're gonna have that's gonna appease their work or their money. And I'll say this, maybe it's not cars, maybe it's a Rolex. So you're
Right.
looking at that guy saying he doesn't have nothing on. Like, for instance, like I told you, I was in the radio business.
Mhm,
So this would have been a year ago. I worked for a Christian conservative radio station. Let me say it like
okay.
that. And the owner, his father started Christian radio station in America,
Mhm, mhm,
all of
mhm,
it.
mhm, mhm,
So he had a Porsche. Speaking of Porsche, how funny! He had a
mhm,
Porsche, and I said, "Man, I like that Porsche." And he never bragged, but he would tell me little
mhm,
stories. Not bragging, but he'd say, "Yeah, I stay by the Dallas Cowboy players, whoop the whoop." And
mhm,
he was
mhm,
saying it for this was when they were dealing, and he didn't like it.
mhm,
But anyway, and I told him one day, I said, "Man, I like your Porsche, man." And I said, "Is it expensive?" And he said, "Oh man, don't even ask me about it." And right after I asked him, he stopped driving it. He started driving a Kia. A new
mm,
one, a new one, a new one, but a Kia. And I said, okay. But what I noticed was when the Houston Astros was in the World Series a few years ago, I think that was about 2 years ago.
yeah,
He
yeah.
said, yeah, I got tickets to sit behind the plate for my family. Don't
Mhm,
ask me how much it costs. So it's
mhm,
like that go back to
mhm.
your point. It's gonna be something. And
It's
and
gonna
that
be
and it's kind
something.
of a good thing because if it's nothing, you almost gotta question that person's mental health a little bit.
Exactly, exactly. You have to do something. And the
Yeah.
thing about what I've seen, some folks, they do, it is a thing to age out, even car enthusiasts, it is a thing to age out of that, right? Um, I get it,
Mm-hmm.
like that part I get.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you start looking at the statistics about different car vehicles and all that, brand loyalty, like Porsche has high brand loyalty, Subaru has high brand loyalty, Ford
Mm-hmm.
does. Um, People that buy Range Rovers and Mercedes S classes specifically, they are
Mm-hmm.
highly brand loyal. Most of them keep those vehicles until the next one comes out or until the warranty's up. Then they go get another one. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, so it's a thing. Like the statistics, the real statistics out there contradict the quick Instagram memes that go out to make the masses feel good.
Yep.
Um,
But
there's
but but
something.
Doc, but Doc, Doc, not to cut you off.
Mhm,
In a way, would it make sense to work out? Go to the school, make a decent salary as a dentist or a doctor or a lawyer,
mhm.
whatever top of your field, and then just store your money. Like, would that really make sense?
Right. So two things can be true, right? So you can still do it all the way that the wealthy people do it. And I don't
Mhm.
I
I don't
don't
know
mean
why
to
we're going down this lane, but I kind of like it. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, the way that they do it, like when you start seeing, because I'm barely there myself,
okay,
right? When it
yeah,
comes to like vehicle purchasing and stuff. But once
hmm,
you hit a certain threshold with some of these cars, if you see a Lamborghini go by or a high end this or that, once you hit that upper six figure number, that upper hundred something $1,000, like 150 and up, these
uh huh,
people aren't buying the cars like me or you would buy them. You know, um, there's different financing terms that go on. They're playing with
wow,
the depreciation rate of these cars because
hmm,
now they're commodities. They're no longer me going to buy me a E-Class Benz or a nice Genesis or something like that.
hmm,
These folks are financing these cars. Let's say you got a $250,000 Ferrari or
hmm,
Lamborghini. they're
Hmm.
financing them out for like 12 to 15 years. You see what I'm saying? But they
Hmm.
have no intention of
Wow.
keeping them 12 to 15 years. The thing
Wow.
is, the depreciation rate, and you got a lot of companies that do this, right? The
Hmm.
depreciation rate of those cars is not like that on traditional vehicles, right? So let's say if I go buy a Ferrari F8 Tributo right now, and I spend,
Yeah, and I know you're a car enthusiast, and I love when we're playing around. How much would you have to put down on a car like that? That's well above
well,
my means. But just asking, how much would you have to?
yeah, so typically it's almost like a house because you know how people say, "Oh, that costs as much as a house," right?
Hmm.
Well, yeah. So the economics are similar to a
Okay.
house. So
Okay.
just like with a house, they're talking about 20%, 15%.
Yep.
It's that
Yep.
kind of numbers. It's those kind of numbers.
Hmm.
No, they're not buying these cars cash.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the reality is, when you start playing with these depreciation rates of these vehicles,
Hmm.
after a certain point, these people are driving for free. You see what I'm
What do you
saying?
mean?
So get this.
Oh, because of the long term.
Yeah, so let's say if we talking about that F8, or if I talk Porsche talk, right?
Okay. Yep.
Because I've seen it. I didn't even realize I was participating in this system. But the depreciation rate on a 911 is very, very low, right? In fact, the last article I saw said the number one car for the least depreciation rate in America is the 911. The
I love them
second,
old ones too, man.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
second least depreciating is the Jeep Wrangler. Okay, so
Hmm.
what happens is, let's say you buy a 911 GT3, a 2015 one, and you spend $140,000 on it today, right?
Hmm.
You put, let's say you put $20,000 down on it. You finance 120 grand on that car, right? You keep that car for a year. You
Hmm.
will be able to sell that car after driving it for the same price you bought it for after a year, right? So now
Hmm.
it puts you in a position to get on the wait list, or you bought into the allocation list to get the new one. The new one is going for 250. Let's say it's going for
Hmm.
250, right?
Hmm.
So you now are about 60 grand up because you already put 20,000 down compared to whatever you paid into it over that year. So now you putting 60 grand on a car that's 250, right?
Hmm.
Now you've got this car that immediately it's still going to be worth 250. It doesn't drop like
Hmm.
almost everything else. And there's a lot of cars like that. Now you
Hmm.
driving that car all year, and let's say you got a loan rate or a loan for 12 years on a $250,000 deal, right? Well, the note on that might be 2 grand a month, which is the same
Yeah.
as somebody who traditionally financed $130,000 car, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but you driving something that's 250, and then when you
Hmm.
sell it, you can sell it for 250 again, but you don't owe
Hmm.
250.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now you can
Wow.
just roll it over, and you still paying the same note. Now you never paying that money down. Like
Yeah.
like the car is now the commodity. It's no
Yeah.
different than real estate at that point. So it's funny when people say, "Oh no, that costs more than a house." Well, the economics are the same as a house. You see, if
Wow.
not better, depending on what it is you're jumping in and out of. So these
Yeah.
people are now driving for free because if I'm able to drive a car for a year and it not lose value, and I've been driving it, I'm
Mhm.
driving for free.
Okay. Gotcha.
You
Yeah.
see, when you look at
Yep.
it in those terms,
Yep.
so it's like at a certain point when the economics change, the mindset changes. That's how come
Yeah.
you see all these people here in Texas. I know in Dallas and here in Houston, all these Lambo trucks and
Oh, you
Rolls
know
Royce.
it.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's because they playing they playing the economics game. The note on them
Wow.
is all the way out there. If I'm able to drive a $300,000 car for the same price as $100,000 car,
Yeah.
they gonna do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see?
Let me ask you this, Doc. And I gotta shut down in 10 minutes. I'm loving this, but I gotta run. I gotta run to the store real quick, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
getting
man.
late. But I love this. Let's do two questions. You gotta
Okay.
hit on your practice. You gotta hit on like how did you come about the start, and
Mhm.
all that. I want you to really talk about your practice, where it's at, and all that. And
Mhm.
then I want to hit on a kind of an odd question. I love this because we're going in a lot of different directions, not like straight line.
Right.
But I want you to speak on that person who maybe a millennial, let's say,
Mhm.
that first generation economically successful person, maybe in their family, and they're looked upon as the money. How do one handle that? It's different if you come from a middle class family where, okay, everybody got a little cheddar, so it's like, oh, good, you're successful, versus
Mhm.
you're the person that made it. Like, how
Mhm.
does that
Mhm.
work versus like, because, and I'm kind of, okay, it's kind of a personal question personally, but not about
Mhm.
myself either. But
Right.
like, people don't know how that could be hard when you get to a certain level, not to mention the debt that comes now. I'm talking about those who come out in medicine the past 3 or 4 years, the debt
Right.
that they accumulated. But it's like, we know that you make 6 figures, you should pay for stuff. That's a big deal in our, well, now I won't say big deal, but that's something in our community that
It's a
no one talks
it's a
about.
thing.
Yeah, the person that got successful, got the money, needs to now shoulder the load. So it's gonna be a two-parter. Give it to me 10 minutes. Talk to me a little bit about that, and then talk about your practice as far as, and we might have to do part two when you get time. But talk to me your practice as far as starting it, getting off the ground, where it's at, and a little bit about that, and we'll end it.
Okay. Well, so practice wise, I say, the name of my practice is Truth General Dentistry. On Instagram, it's at TGD Houston TX, right? Um, we do primarily cosmetic dentistry, but I do everything else. I've been practicing dentistry 13 years. The practice is going on 7 to 8 years old now at this point. Um, it's it's been a while. I started it 2018, and I
Okay.
started from the mud, from the
So
seed.
you started it. You were commercial, or was this when you were working at different?
Yeah, I was still working. Like I started it, man, taking on patients at night, like just
Okay.
slowly
Yeah.
building it up. And so I acquired a place, and I had taken seed money from some old buddies of mine, and they put up 50%, and I put up 50%, right?
Wow.
Um, Typically, a business takes about 5 years to make a profit.
Hmm.
Historically, a dental office usually takes half that, maybe 3 years, right? Well, pandemic came that kind of shifted some stuff, right? So
Yeah.
it took me about 4.5 years to see real profit, right?
Hmm.
And it was grind up to that point. And we definitely have to have a part two to talk about that. But the 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 buddies that invested initially,
Uh-huh.
most of them fell off, and we fell out as things happen.
Oh,
You know what I'm
wow.
saying? Because
Wow.
yeah, I mean, not everybody's fit. Just because you have some money in your pocket, it doesn't mean you're a businessman. Not everybody's
Yeah.
fit
Yeah.
to be, and I don't profess to be perfect, but
Hmm.
a couple of the guys definitely were not fit. Some
Wow.
people believe that they put money in, they're supposed to get money out with no work at all, right?
Wow.
So
That's a good
you
point.
right. It's a lot that goes into that. Do I regret it? No, I don't, because unfortunately, you hit on it earlier, loosely, but you're not the crew that you have that you start with ain't gonna be who you finish with. So those guys, we weren't as we when we got together, we were still bottled up together as how we knew each other from high school and college
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
Now we not, and it's
Yeah.
divergent paths. We not
Yeah.
in the same circles. We don't do the same things. I'm not
Hmm.
going to say that I'm doing better than them or whatever, but what I can tell you is I'm out and about, and they're nowhere where I am.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
can take that as you will,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So but that comes with it, with the territory.
Yep.
The one out of that crew that was solid, me and him still solid. In fact, he shot me a text now, like we about to be outside after I get off of this,
Yeah.
like it is what it is. Water meets its level, so to speak.
Yep.
Um, but finally turned to profit. Um, and it's just been working ever since, man. The hardest part about it is that there's no rule book, and there is a chain of
Mm.
guard that happens, like between your parents and yourself. If your parents or whoever's been in your life guiding you up to age, like there was a point where my folks had to tell me, "Hey, look, you're you're on a path where we can't help you anymore. We can't give you advice. We're not dentists. You've essentially surpassed what we can give you." you
Hmm.
know, and that's like, okay, the official leaving the nest. Not talking about leaving the crib and all that, but the official, hey son, you the man now. You got the keys
Yep.
to the kingdom, make it do what it do. You know?
Yep.
So that's a thing. Uh but you got every day you got to come in and what how we had to do and put it on the line. You have to work like every day could be the last day because it could be,
Wow.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um, it's not. It's challenging. It's challenging.
Wow.
I tell
Wow.
anybody, um, business ownership it isn't for everybody, and a lot of people try, and a
Doc,
lot of people fail.
Doc, that, and I hate to stop you, and man, I'm
Mhm.
loving this, bro. I love the like. I had a coach tell me, University of Arizona running back coach tell me, the energy, man. You feel people energy when you talk to them, whether it's face to face or on virtual. We say
Yeah,
that energy is real. But I like your energy. Let me say this though. What you said is very real. I knew a lady that started her practice, and now she works for a big corporate company, which I won't name, but I see their billboards around town. I'm gonna tell you
hmm,
something else. Now I noticed that talks to that point about it's probably not easy as people think. When I was emailing all those dentists, half of those emails didn't work, which told me they're probably no longer in practice anymore.
yeah.
To speak to your point.
Yeah, it's a very real possibility. I know it's some stories. I've had to fight to stay in the game. You know what I'm saying? Like it
Mhm.
comes with the territory. It's
Yeah.
such as life, such as business. The business cycle is what it is, and that's why I said even though I there aren't many decisions that I've made that I would go back and change if I had the power to do so,
Mhm.
but um there if somebody came in here right now like I said and gave me a check, I wouldn't have a problem walking away you
Doc,
know
is it just the monetary view of it, or it's because it's hard work trying to maintain your own place?
it's hard work. It's hard
Okay.
work. There's something to be said for working for somebody and just being able to come in and go home and
Including just the corporate giant.
in the corporate. Yeah, so I
Okay.
don't knock anybody that works corporate. I really don't. If
Hmm.
if they like it, I love it.
Hmm.
There are other nuances that come with corporate that you have to resolve because sometimes they'll test you. Sometimes they'll try to make you do stuff that isn't ethical. It's the freedom is what I do like about owning my own practice. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? The ability to do so. The access to money is much, much greater than if you were a general dentist working for somebody. In
Let
dentistry,
me stop you, Doc. Let me stop you, Doc. Why is that? Talk to me a little bit about why is that? Why can you earn more in the private practice?
well, because you are the talent and you are the house. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Hmm.
kind of like, let's say if I owned a casino and then I go downstairs and gamble in my casino. What I mean, it's whatever. I might lose some money over here, but they've given the money to, it's still
Yeah.
gonna come back. Like
Yeah.
you have the ability, like, let's say you woke up with zero in your bank account, you own your own business.
Hmm.
You are the alchemist. You have the ability to go out there and make that money today. When you
Yeah.
work from somebody, nothing's gonna happen until payday. You see what
Boy,
I'm
you ain't
saying?
lying. Yeah.
Right. But owning your own, hey man, we got to get it. We need to go out there and sell this because we need to pay for this. And next thing you know, somebody done spent, you done made $30,000 today. And
Yeah.
you woke up with zero, you know?
Doc, from a dentist perspective, is that simply, hey, we need to schedule more patients, we need to be open later? Is that simply that, or is it a little bit more than that, or something different?
Man, uh, it's all of it.
Okay.
Chance favors the prepared mind. So
Uh
you
huh.
have to always be on. You have to approach everything strategically. Like you have to constantly be, as a business owner, you can't have an employee mindset. You can't focus on the expenses because bills gonna come all the time,
Hmm.
and people gonna always be calling you to pay this bill and that bill. But you can't let that. It's only you only open so many hours of the day. It's only so many hours of the day. So you
Yeah.
need to divide up how much time am I going to focus on majoring in the minors, right?
Mm. Yeah.
I can let's say if in our case, let's say we have a real needy patient that's calling and calling and calling, we might have to ignore that call because this is stopping us from contacting somebody that's trying to come in and generate revenue. or this is
Yeah.
stopping us from engaging in this partnership with this company that's going to bring in this amount of business. This is stopping us from coming up with the next marketing idea or whatever. Like in my business, when we go Instagram live, our phones start ringing. It's almost like a telethon, you know. So and
Wow.
that's free, you
Yep.
know. So like we have enough Instagram following. We have like 19.4 thousand followers on Instagram that are real
Good.
followers. So when we
Good.
get on there and we do live, people engage with us and say, you know what, let me call because I want to get scheduled. I've been meaning to do this
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
single time. So
Yeah.
the challenge that I have is making sure that my team is motivated enough. Yo, y'all, we got to go live. If it looks
Oh.
like we're coming up short on our numbers, if the
Yep.
bookings look light, we got to go live, and that's free. All it takes is us to
Yep.
actually get up and do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
it's something new every day. And the challenge that I have the most is I have a great team. But the
About how
challenge,
many people you got on your team, coach? I mean, a doc. How
uh,
many people?
so it's about five of us in here on a daily basis, but
Okay.
total is about eight, right?
Okay.
Um, but the biggest challenge is making sure I keep them motivated
Wow.
enough to keep their
Yep.
creative juices flowing. Don't get in the routine standard. Oh, the next
Yep.
person coming in, next person coming in. Okay, now we're ready to go home. Yo, no,
Yeah.
we got to call them audibles and we got to do our
Yep.
thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's the most challenging part. But when I think about it, the stuff that I would complain about being a business owner, I personally, knowing me, I can't see it any other way. I
Mm.
don't know what I'd do with myself if I wasn't on the field, so to speak. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Man,
So,
man, good stuff, good stuff. And it was something that you said too. I know I said coach, man, but it was something
yeah.
that you said I was gonna say something too, um, as it relates to owning your own practice, owning your own business that I forgot. But no, I think that was a good point. I think what you said about staying motivated, going live, those little things like that, that's very important. I hate I
Oh,
hate
the
I
last
forgot
part
that.
of your question. One last, you had mentioned about basically that survivor's guilt, where your
Yeah,
family and all that, when you're
yeah,
the one, um,
yeah.
they're going to always come to you. That comes with it. And you just have to be able to say yes or no.
I
You know what
told
I'm
and yeah,
saying?
yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah, it's a
That's what
big
I
thing.
said.
You have to fortify yourself to be able to say yes or no because you don't want to pull the MC Hammer out here and support everybody to where you look. You can't help the less fortunate by becoming one of them.
Wow. Wow, that's it right there, man. I had another question, but it escaped my mind, so that means we need to close, man. Go out, enjoy. Let me stop again, Doc. What's some other things you enjoy outside the practice? You mentioned the cars. Are there anything else any
Oh,
hobbies, anything else you
traveling,
like? Traveling.
traveling,
And we say traveling, what does that mean? Does that mean out the country? Does that mean domestically,
the whole
international? What is
thing,
that?
man. And
Okay.
like with me being an airplane enthusiast,
I
um,
forgot. You got your license?
no,
Okay.
that I don't think I want to do that. It's so again, it comes down. It's only so many hours in the day. I got
Yeah.
one of my homeboys is getting his, and he wants me to get it with him. But my interest is fed by being more of a spectator and being very knowledgeable about the aviation industry, right?
Yeah.
So, like for example, I did. We had gone out. I'd taken the team out to Charlotte last weekend to one of my buddies' practice to see one of our clients who's out there, one of our patients. And so they all flew back here, but I did a mileage run because here in Houston we got mainly Southwest and United, and so I have I'm top tier with United, and so I need to maintain my status with them. So I did
Mm.
a mileage run. I flew from Charlotte to DC to San Diego to Chicago back to Houston, all in the span of 24 hours. You see what I'm
Wow.
saying? But
Yeah.
I'm cool with that because I like
Yeah.
airplanes and I like
Yeah.
to fly.
Yeah.
So I travel pretty regularly, man. Like international, domestic. The only continent I haven't been to yet is Africa. It was an Africa trip planned, but then COVID came about. Um, but yeah, I get around, man. I really
That's
do.
good, man. That because you gotta enjoy your fruits. And it's funny you say Africa. I was talking to one of my, I don't know if I say mentors, but kind of one of my OGs. He was a long time news guy for ABC down here, and I told him, I said, man,
Mhm.
what's the best place you've ever been to? He said those beautiful houses in the hills of San Francisco. It's like none
Mhm.
you ever seen. And he said South Africa. He
Yeah.
said, those two places are, and it's like Africa. When when now I know about it, so I don't want to act like ignorant. But
Right.
he said
Right.
South Africa. When I looked up South Africa, man, I was blown away by the beauty of that place. So it's interesting that you
Yeah,
say you haven't been there yet.
yeah. I hadn't been yet. It's on the bucket list. Like I think upcoming. I think there's a trip to like Bali that's
Okay.
developing a group trip that I think that me and the missus gonna hop on. But
Now, now,
beyond
coach,
that,
now, Doc, how are you able to? And I ain't shout out to the missus. You need to speak. Shout out to the missus. How are you able to do that with the practice? Is it a thing where it's like in 8 months I'm leaving? Because I would think it's kind of like in your mind, it's like, man, I got to be here all the time to help this thing run. But is it where it's like, hey, I'm looking ahead and I'm scheduling ahead as far as when you can travel?
yeah, yeah. So that's the other beauty about it all. You can go ahead and you can frame all that. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? Like you have the ability to control all that.
Okay.
You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
You can control your schedule.
Yeah, gotcha. Man, we'll do part two, man, because it's probably still a little meat on the bone, but 30 an hour and 37 minutes in, Dr. Jordan out of Houston. Doc, give your website one more time.
Yeah, on Instagram, it's at TGD Houston TX. On the internet, it's www.drandrejordan.com. That's DRANDREJORDAN.com. Like I said, we actually have a lot of clients that come out of the DFW area.
Good stuff. Doc, one more question. I know, man. I know we were just how
That's
does with
cool.
that private with that private practice do, and I hate to dive back in it because we're about to end it, but insurance, do you guys is it like, for instance, when you go to a corporate, they want to see what kind of insurance, is it HBO, is it this, that? In the private sector, is it the same way?
It's the same way, but every dentist dreams about being fee for service because insurance companies do you dirty. Like they really run
Mm,
the value down, really, really bad.
wow.
And sneakily, it sneaked up on us. We're 90% fee for service. Like we take insurance,
Wow.
but the bulk of our patient base, because we do mainly cosmetics, what insurance doesn't cover, it's
Yep.
it's fee for service. The
Yeah.
good part about that is, hey, it's fee for service, it's cash, right?
Yep.
The bad part is it's not as routine. It's a big commercial marketing component. Like we got to get out there and grind for it and get it out the mud and search for, you got to,
Yeah.
just like anybody else selling anything.
Yep.
Whereas insurance, those patients are kind of built in because they got insurance. It's just
Yep.
that it changes the complexion of your day-to-day work. Now
Yeah.
you're focusing more on hygiene, cleanings, and maybe some extractions, but mainly fillings and routine stuff like that, which is much higher volume work for less pay.
Mm.
It still
Yep.
can be lucrative, but it's a different type of work. It's more
Yeah.
predictable,
Yep.
but it's nothing like going to check the mail to see if you got a check in the mail. That's great.
Yeah.
But when it's fee for service, it's like, yo, this is the direct result of whatever we're doing to bring the business in.
Yeah. Good stuff. Woo! That was a good episode. Hey Doc, go out, man. Enjoy your calls. Enjoy your time, man. Let's catch up soon, man. I lock you in as far as your number,
Okay.
man, and I'm gonna post this either tonight or it's a longer episode. So if I post it at 9, it won't be posted to about midnight. But I'll post it
Right.
in. I'll send you the YouTube link if you want to play with it or put it out anywhere you
Absolutely.
can. And man, hey, I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate your time, man, because it's probably one of the longest interviews I've done. So I thank you, bro, and you have a good night.
All right, man. You do the same, man. Appreciate it, boss.
All right, Doc. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
All right.